Good morning, everyone online. So today I want to talk about a few lines from, make sure this is good. Yeah. Dogen Fukanzazengi Fukanzazengi. Sometimes translated as universal recommendation for Zazen. So I'd say universal recommendations for practice in all its aspects. So we chant this regularly here at Ocean Gate and in just about every Soto Zen temple or center that I know of. And it's a full enriched text about everything from how to hold your hands in Zazen to how to fully realize the teachings. So it's worth visiting over and over and over again. It has much to say to us about how to live a life of deep practice, how we give our practice to ourselves, how we give our practice to others, how we participate in our practice with the world. So in Fukanzazengi, Dogen advises us to cease practice based on intellectual understanding, pursuing words and following after speech, and learn the backward step that turns the light inward to illuminate yourself. Body and mind of themselves will drop away, and your original face will be manifest. Later, at the very end of the fascicle, he says, your treasure store will open of itself, and you will use it at will. So these are the lines I'm going to talk a little bit about today. There are many ways to understand turning the light inward. And I've talked about this before. So one way of turning the light inward is the process of turning attention to our own minds and hearts and all dimensions of our experience. So a quick review of what I've said before. We can think of this process in three phases. First, we become familiar with our habits of thought and feeling, the contents of our thoughts and feelings. Now, this is not something that's often focused on in Buddhist meditation, but I think it's a really important part of what we do. This is not about figuring it all out. It's just about coming to know what is present in our lives. So it's like coming to know the geography of our inner mind and heart. Do we tend to think about the future? Do we tend to ruminate on the past? Do we tend to grumble? Do we tend to think positively? Do we sink into grief and sadness or anger or contentment or sleepiness? What's the tone? What's the colors of our day-to-day lives? What shapes how we understand the world? So if we get to know this, it allows us to negotiate our world more lightly because we're familiar with what shapes us. We don't have to go to battle with it. We're just like, okay, there you are. The second aspect or step is to attend to our thinking process itself. This is something that most of you are familiar with in terms of Buddhist meditation. We see our thoughts and emotions come and go. We see our tendency to identify with them, become the person we think and that thinks and feels like that's who we are. So this doesn't mean that we discount our thoughts and feelings, only that we come to know a more spacious way of being with our thoughts and feelings. Oh, it comes, it goes. The third aspect points to this luminosity that lies behind, between, and enfolds our thoughts and emotions. We call it our original face, our true nature. In a sense, we can't see it because we are it. So we point to this by talking about luminosity, by talking about original face, by talking about, so this is the third aspect of turning the light inward, is in a sense coming to know the light firsthand. This is an engagement with ourselves and our world that can shift how we are, who we think we are, and how we live. The next line naturally flows from this. It flows directly from what Dogen has said before. So this line is, body and mind of themselves will drop away and your original face will be manifest. Now, as with the first lines, there's a lot we can say about, we could just take a few words and talk for days about it. But I want to focus on this line here for a while. Body and mind of themselves will drop away and your original face will be manifest. So Dogen, the founder of our school, trained at Mount Hiei in the Tendai tradition. And he trained there for a long time. And there's many reasons why people say he left, but he did. And then he studied Zen in Japan, what had already come over from from China. And then he went to China himself. So this was kind of the way of deepening one's realization at that time, was to go to China and go to the motherland in a sense. And it was a dangerous journey, but he did it. And there he met his teacher. There he met the one he felt like he could really deeply practice with, whose name was Rujing. And while Dogen was sitting with him, Rujing said, you can imagine this like cold Chinese monastery, dark. Rujing said, to study the way is to cast off body and mind. So this phrase illuminated Dogen. It transformed him. It transformed his life, and it was a touchstone for his teaching when he returned to Japan and for the rest of his life. So dropping off body and mind is important to understanding our way. In Japanese, it's shinjin datsuraku. It's the releasing of all aspects of who we think, feel, and assume we are. And allowing a clarity of being, the dynamic, particular, and empty of fixedness nature that we are, to allow that to manifest. So Shinjin, in this case, as you know, you can say one word and it can have many meanings, right? So when we have to know you can't just say, what's the same in English, right? But you can't just say, like if you said the word ball, it could mean a round thing that you bounce, or it can mean something that you dress up for to go dance, right? So Shinjin can mean many different things, different characters. In this case, it means body mind. So note that this is not body and mind, it's body mind. So the character Datsuraku, dropping off body and mind, has a sense to scatter or fall away. It's sometimes described as melting. It's an activity that has the quality of both allowing and being active. So datsu means to remove or extract, and raku has a sense of falling away. It's a movement not generated by the self. Like leaves scattered in the wind is an image that's sometimes used for that, or molting of feathers. So there's something natural, it simply happens. It's simply, maybe we could say like a ripe fruit dropping from a tree. It's a natural thing. So this is important because there's both personal effort and something that happens without our effort. The effort associated with dropping off body and mind is decisive, determined, resolute, and personal, and also participatory, and allowing something one does not direct. Okay, so both. One translation, one scholar suggested that it should be translated as letting cast off. Letting cast off. I like that a lot, but it would be awkward to use that in a sentence, right? So this points to a kind of effort involved in dropping off that has a mutual reciprocity of one's own effort and the effort that is not bound or tied to the self, beyond the self, we might say. So in Zazen and in our daily lives, as we align ourselves and engage in the practice, this is realized. We allow the self to shed itself. We open the door to our original face so that our original face might be manifest. We invite the world of original face to become real for us and through us. So there are endless ways to practice this, as many as there are circumstances in our lives. We settle ourselves in Zazen. We attend to the complexities of our lives with kindness, courage, simplicity. We come to know the habits of our minds and hearts, and we're not bound by them. We come to know what has true meaning for us, and we vow to follow it. We act in concert with others, knowing that we're not apart. We are of one nature. We make this concrete, and we live it out day by day without a corrosive notion of perfection or striving. So to find ways to make this central to your life is crucial. It's not an extra add-on when you have time. If you want to realize this, you look at your life and you say, yes, I will. The ways can be small. A few minutes of Zazen in the morning, bowing to the Buddha. Maybe you bow to a tree as you leave your house. 10 minutes of reading something from the Dharma. 2 minutes. 1 minute. 15 seconds. Reciting a short verse. Taking a moment to acknowledge the generosity of all aspects of your life that's given to you. Talking with a friend, a dharma friend, or even a teacher about how to do this. It just takes some thought and some commitment to remember and do it. But there's nothing that can substitute for making your life a field of practice. I know that you hear me say this over and over again, but your life is a field of practice just as it is. It doesn't need to be something else. So I hope you know that, really hear that. There's an unboundedness that we can discover in this practice, an unaliveness, a practicality, a heart, an artistry. As we do this, Dogen Zenji says, our treasure store will open of itself and we will use it as well. Now this sentence is something we could spend a long time on, and maybe I'll just give a talk on this one sentence sometimes. It's a treasure store of wisdom, treasure store of vitality, treasure store of generosity, treasure store of awakening, treasure store of courage, treasure store of engagement. It will open of itself. And you will use it at will. We manifest, we express. The we here, the you and we, or you or we will use it as will. That is not a like, I will use it at will. It's more generative than that. This is a deep cooperative self. You will use it as will, at will. So this last line reminds me of some of my favorite embodiments of the way, some stories. This is a statement of maturity. Your treasure store will open of itself. First of all, there is a treasure store, your treasure store, not somebody else's, but yours. It will open of itself. When we align ourselves, when we ripen, when we mature, this treasure store opens of itself. And you will use it at will. It means attuned with this circumstance, I come forward. I give. I participate. I see. So the you that does this is the you that's deeply connected. The you that knows wisdom, confidence, depth. If it's just for a moment, it's just for a moment. But it's there. So when I think of this, I think of these stories. Florence Kaplow and Susan Moon put a book together about, not all about old women, all about women, but not all old women. But they called them tea grannies. I think some of you recall I've talked about tea grannies before. So these women And the thing I want to emphasize is this is not about being a woman or a man. This is about, as we'll see, these are characters that are not bound by a definition. They're not bound by convention. They're outside. They're outsiders in a way. They're shrewd and wise and fearless. Most often, they're not mentioned by name, but are still the central characters in the story. They challenge the authority and understanding of monks and masters that they encounter, or who come to them for teaching. This is important. Some of these stories are really about people coming for teachings. In particularly, they challenge any pretension or arrogance, any vestige of a self that needs to be shed. In a way, the fact that they're not named is an important point and an encouragement. They had impact in their lives. Their treasure store opened and they used it and it mattered. They weren't one of the famous people. They were in the world, ordinary, wise. So most often we know almost nothing about how they came to their wisdom. Sometimes they're identified as students of someone. We have no idea how they came to their skill, their confidence, their insight, their nuanced understanding of the teachings. We know nothing of their past experience, often. Their experience with the Dharma, or their lives, their losses, their loves, their struggles. We were presented with a snapshot of them. Now, as I say, some we know something about, but often we don't. So for me, they're placeholders for all those who are not named. And that's most of us, isn't it? Clearly, they came to live a life of the Dharma, practice deeply, and know it from the inside. They digested it and became intimate with it in their daily life as it was, until it ripened in such a way that it was natural to express it. They became people of the way, women of the way. Sally Teasdale, Chico Sally Teasdale, wrote a wonderful book about this some years ago. She's a wonderful writer. So they're naturally full of confidence, sometimes outrageousness, depth, creativity. It seems that many, if not most, lived in very hard times. They lived simply and without privilege, status, or fame. But their voice carries on. We hear it now. So I think this is a model that has real relevance for us. And I'd like to share one of their stories with you that I think is directly related and came to mind when I thought about this topic. This is from the 9th century China. And the title of this story is The Old Women with the Rice Cakes. Are you ready? Okay. Deishan Zunqiang was a great scholar of the Diamond Sutra, but he was not a Chan practitioner. Chan meaning the precursor to what in Japan is called Zen. He was traveling south in search of the Dharma, carrying his commentaries of the Diamond Sutra with him. In the course of his travels, he came across an old woman on the roadside selling tea and rice cakes. Always watch out for somebody by the side of the road selling tea and rice cakes. He asked her, "Who are you?" That's an interesting question, right? She responded, "I'm an old woman selling rice cakes." When he asked if he could buy some refreshment from her, she inquired, "Venerable priest, what are you carrying in your bag?" He said, "I am a scholar of the Diamond Sutra, and here I have all my notes and commentaries." Hearing this, the old woman said, "I have heard, according to the Diamond Sutra, past mind is ungraspable, present mind is ungraspable, future mind is ungraspable. So where is the mind that you wish to refresh with rice cakes, O scholar?" If you can answer this, you may buy a rice cake from me. If not, you will have to go elsewhere for refreshment. Deshan was unable to reply. The old woman then directed him to a Chan master nearby. Deshan burned all his notes and commentaries the next day. So think about this. Dogen tells us, cease practice based on intellectual understanding and pursuing words and following after speech. And learn the backward step that turns the light inward to illuminate the self. Body and mind of themselves will drop away, and your original face will be manifest. And later, your treasure store will open of itself, and you will use it at will. So, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Maybe not. He asked her, "Who are you?" Her answer is simple and to the point. In this moment, who are you? I'm an old woman selling rice cakes. Just this person selling rice cakes. Just, that's all. Very simple. Just, and then the hook. Venerable priest. She nails him, right? Venerable priest, what are you carrying in your bag? She doesn't say, "Who are you?" She says, "What are you carrying around with you? What are you carrying?" And he totally falls for it, right? "I am a scholar of the Diamond Sutra." Now, I have to say, the Diamond Sutra is wonderful, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a scholar of the Diamond Sutra. But was that applicable in that moment? I am a scholar of the Diamond Sutra. And here I have all my notes and commentaries. In other words, I'm this, and look, I have all these papers to prove it. And she sets him straight, right? She opens up her treasure store and uses it. She uses it. Obviously, she's familiar with the Diamond Sutra, or she wouldn't be able to quote it back to him. And she points to the one thing that he needs to hear in that moment. Past mind is ungraspable. Present mind is ungraspable. Future mind is ungraspable. So where is the mind you wish to refresh? She's telling him, cease practice based on intellectual understanding. pursuing words and following after speech. Learn the backward step that turns the light inward and illuminates yourself. There's nothing wrong with study if it's part of the process of turning the light inward to illuminate yourself. So she's like generously opening this treasure's door and pointing something out to him. Body and mind of themselves will drop away and your original face will be manifest. In other words, Buster, don't tell me about being a scholar here. What are you doing? You're a priest. You're a practitioner. What are you doing? He was unable to reply. So notice he's a good practitioner. Why? Because he didn't say, well, who are you? Or I'm a scholar or anything. He listened to her. He listened to her. And he looked in that moment, he knew he could not reply and he was honest. He wasn't trying to fool anybody. He was like, so he's like a stellar practitioner because he heard what was being said to him, took it in by this old woman selling rice cakes. This is how we are a student of everyone and everything. So he gets it. That's an inspiration for us. He gets it. He doesn't know what he gets, but he gets it. And she responds, pointing him towards what will deepen his understanding and his practice. He sees her. He enters the practice. He turns the light inward. He takes the next step to deepen his understanding, his practice, and his manifestation of the way. And then he burns all his notes and commentaries. And he doesn't burn the sutra, notice. He doesn't burn the core of the teaching, but all of this stuff, all of this self that he's built up, he sheds it in that moment. So I think these stories can help us enter the practice and know that we can do it in the field of practice that we have, in the life that we have. Yeah, just like the old woman selling rice cakes. Thank you.